Let me move on quickly. Sorry, I'm taking more time than I expected. Let me move on quickly to the role of government. The government has a redistributive role. That's part and parcel of a progressive agenda. Everyone has to pay some tax. That's why we have the GST. Everyone pays some tax. Not many people pay income tax. A certain segment of the population pays no property tax or very little property tax, but everyone pays some tax, and it's mainly through the GST. But the low-income group receives back in benefits substantially more than the taxes they pay. In fact, over a lifetime, for each dollar of taxes they pay, they receive $5 in benefits back, based on our current policies. And of that $5, $4 comprises permanent schemes, and the extra dollar is the one-off schemes when we can afford it. So they get back a lot more than what they pay. The middle-income group, those around the 50th percentile, if you don't own a car, you get back more benefits than the taxes you pay. For every dollar you pay, I think you get back about $1.50. If you own a car, I'm sorry, you get back slightly less than what you pay. That's the system. Higher income group, they pay the bulk of the taxes. When you add up all the taxes together, income tax, GST, property tax, everything together, COEs and maid levies and so on, and they get back very little of the benefits. So it's a progressive system, and we've got to keep it that way. And even as we raise revenues in future years, much further down the road, in order to sustain higher social expenditures and other expenditures, we've got to make sure we keep this a progressive system. How much we provide to those who have less is as important as how we provide to those who have less. And I really want to emphasize this point. We're not providing little, by the way. If you look at how much we provide to the bottom 20% of the population, the households who are in the bottom 20% in terms of incomes, based on, if you look at this year's budget, we are providing per capita, in other words, per member of the household, we are providing about $2,100 per year, per capita, to the households that are in the bottom 20%. $2,100 per capita, which is equal to about 1/4 of their total expenditures per capita. A very significant government transfer. And this does not include the housing grant, which I'll come to in a minute, which is very significant. Leaving aside the housing grants, the rest of the transfers that we provide amount to 25% of the expenditures of those in the bottom 20%. And of that $2,100, most of it is permanent schemes, not temporary one-off schemes. When we can afford it, we give some things that are one-off. More than 80% of it is permanent schemes. Workfare, childcare subsidies, baby bonuses, medical subsidies, all the regular subsidies that we provide through life. How we provide is critical, because we want to do it in a way that sustains what I talked about earlier: individual effort and responsibility, a workplace culture that rewards workers and gives them the incentive to stay at the job, and community spirit and community engagement. So how we provide support is extremely important. And our focus is on education and training, fundamentally, housing, work, giving an incentive to work rather than not to work, and finally, making sure that the elderly are taken care of, and particularly the low-income and middle-income elderly. Our housing policy is somewhat unique. Very few countries do this. 80% of those in the bottom 20% of our population, 80% of those in the bottom 20% of our population own a home, which is unique internationally. And it's part and parcel of our strategy for ensuring an inclusive society. It makes, for those who have a regular job and who can hold a regular job, even if they're low income, we are providing them a grant that enables them to own a home and have an asset when they retire. Significant increase in grants. The special housing grant is $60,000, so that even if you're very low income, if you purchase a 2-room flat, it takes care of about 60% of the cost of the flat. You have an asset that appreciates over time. You have more take-home income to use on consumption rather than to use for payment or rental. And when you retire, you've got an asset that is appreciated in value. You haven't been left out of asset appreciation. And if need be, you can move to a studio apartment or sell your flat and rent a flat. In other words, monetize your asset. So from an economic perspective and a social perspective, this is a strategy that ensures that the low-income group shares in progress, not just in income, but in wealth, and has adequate savings for retirement. That's our housing strategy, and I mention it because it's somewhat unique. Very few countries do this. In fact, no other country does it for the low-income group. We've got Workfare training supplements, a whole set of incentives to encourage everyone to be at work. And if you're low income, we top up your wages through Workfare. Healthcare, I won't elaborate now, but it's something that was very important in this year's budget, expanding healthcare subsidies, not just for the low-income group, but the middle-income group. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, it is not just an activist government, not just a progressive fiscal policy that creates an inclusive society. It has to be, at the end of the day, about everyone creating and co-creating an inclusive society. Community initiative and community activism is key. And it comes from surprising places, surprising people, and in surprising ways. I'll give you an example from my own constituency, Tharman. A group of individuals got together to form a group they call Beacon of Life. I've got a set of slides coming up on this. Beacon of Life. It's an interesting group because every member of the group is an ex-inmate, an ex-offender. Most of them are quite young, in their 20s and 30s, some a little older. So they set it up last year, all ex-offenders, started as a self-help group. They meet every week to listen to each ex-offender, including new ones coming out of prison, advise them both on work, on studies, try to find out what the best direction is for each of these individuals. They work with their families, including families of those who still have a family member in prison. And now they are going beyond being a self-help group to also help youth at risk beyond themselves. They're working now with the Boys' Home on an arts program and using the arts program to also guide these young individuals. Try to get them onto the right path, in the right direction, and helping them to stay the cause. Very interesting group of individuals, self-initiated, with some guidance from seniors in the community, and in particular from a former senior prisons officer called Masadi. Wonderful man who's been a source of guidance to them, but essentially led and run by ex-offenders. The leader, next slide, Kim Wai-Kee, 33 years, spent 10 years in prison. While in prison, discovered a knack for pottery making because we had that program for some prisoners to learn the arts. Discovered he had a real talent for it, came out, went to La Salle College, got his diploma, now pursuing his degree. He's the leader of what leader of the gang. Next, Darren Tan, assistant group leader, also 33, also more than 10 years in prison, committed several types of offenses that got him into jail for a long period. Now at NUS Law, not easy to get into, did very well while in the prisons, sat for his NITEC and A-levels, and he's also a real activist on the ground now, and another charismatic leader. As he says, impossible is a cop-out for not willing to try. Third example, I'm just giving you 3 examples of this team of wonderful people. Norizan, a little younger, 32. She was not part of the original group, but this original group, Beacon of Life, had visited her after she came out of prison, visited her at home, and then helped realize that she had aspirations to do a diploma, so linked her up with a yellow ribbon bursary scheme, helped her get her diploma. Now she's completed a diploma and she's working at Mount Elizabeth. As she put it very simply, I've been helped much, now it's time to render help to others. So it's a A group of people, multiracial, all gone through a tough experience, and they want to use their experience to help others and inspire others. And quite frankly, they're now amongst my most compassionate and active volunteers in Tharman, Jurong. Here's a nice photograph of them. The next slide, and I think if we can just move to the next slide quickly. So the gentleman on the right is Masadi, who's a former senior prisons officer. But this is a group, this is a part of the group. There's several other members who are not here. But it's an example, surprising where community activism can come from and the form it can take. But if they can do it, everyone can. If they can do it, everyone can. So I end on that note. A fair and just society is everyone's responsibility. The government has to play its part. And the government is playing a larger part in redistribution, in investing in social mobility, and in making sure that in the workplace there's opportunity for every worker. But it's everyone's responsibility. It's about employers playing their part. It's about community activists. It's about you and me, wherever you live, thinking of a way to help others and spending a bit of time on it, holding someone else's hand. That's how, together, we will create a fair and just society. That's how we will ensure that we have an inclusive Singapore. Thank you.